Hello. Good evening, everybody of Pathlight Thrive Hive, or YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube and you're wondering where this comes from, it's a Facebook group called Pathlight Thrive Hive. You can search for it and join, and we do lots of stuff like this. Do lots of talks around mental health and holistic well-being and personal development, spiritual development, and navigating life's challenges. And it's a really supportive, friendly community. So if you are watching this on YouTube or somewhere else, then feel free to come over to Facebook and join the group. It's great, even though I say so myself. So tonight we have a special guest who is Jackie Bennis. I think this is probably her fourth visit, possibly even fifth. And we were just having a chat in the old green room there, saying that she's a bit of a pro at this now. She's done this so many times that she knows the ropes. So really good topic today. It's all about toxic parenting and childhood trauma, which one of our Thrive Hive, what should I call it, bees, hivers, requested actually. So I know there's at least one person who's highly interested from a personal level around what we're going to discuss today, and hopefully it will be resonant for many of us because we've all had parents, or at least we've all had some kind of parenting from parent figures. So hopefully it'll be really useful. And we've all been children as well, haven't we? Yes. What else do I need to say? Okay, yes. If you'd like to share the group with your friends, your network, your Facebook buddies, people at work, whoever you want, then just give them that link there. Bring them in, or you can invite them in if you're already Facebook friends with them. Invite them in directly if you think they'll benefit from what goes on here. The more the merrier. And if you personally are enjoying it, you're finding some benefit from the Hive, then you can subscribe for £7 a month and get various wonderful benefits. Or you can just buy me a coffee anytime at the same website, which is buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive, and you can donate £3 or some denomination thereof, and that helps us to keep it sustainable. Thank you. When I say us, I mean me. And if you do so before the 31st of August, which is Monday, I think, isn't it? Bank holiday Monday, 31st, you will be entered into a prize draw, and you can win a free ticket to an event that Joanne Forrestal is running in September. Forgotten the date now, but it's on the Hive. It's called Do It Despite. So it's to help anyone who has some goals, has something they want to achieve, and is struggling to do so due to negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts, any kind of blocks that you're putting on yourself. So you can get half price tickets by following the link on the Hive, and there's a, discount code on there. Joanne's been very kind in giving that to us. But also, like I say, if you subscribe or just buy me a coffee before close of play on Monday, you'll be entered into the prize draw for the free ticket. So another reason to donate if you needed one. And finally, if you have any questions or comments as we go through tonight's chat, as usual, just pop them in the comments box and we will read them out and try and answer them as we go. And if you want us to know who you are, you can either just type your name before your message, because otherwise we won't know who you are, unless you go to this little link here. So the software that I use, StreamYard, needs permission to show your name and Facebook profile picture thingy. And if you just go to that link just now, it takes about 30 seconds. You can do that and we will know who you are. Or you can remain anonymous or just type your name before your message if you want. That is all. So let's bring Jackie in and we can have a chat all about toxic parenting and childhood trauma. So welcome back once again,
Hi.
Jackie.
Hi, Paul.
Thank you
very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Always welcome, Jackie. And we always get lots of wonderful feedback from your sessions. So thank you once again for your time. And for those of the people on the Hive who haven't seen you before, could you just give a brief introduction to say a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, yes, I did the same training that Paul is doing a long time ago. I finished in 2000 and I've been seeing clients ever since. I see couples and individual clients, and I also trained as a supervisor, so I also see supervisees. most of the work is done online, but I'm currently working with a couple, and providing nothing happens in Barcelona, that we have to go into lockdown, I can see them face to face, because it's really not as good working with a couple online as it is face to face. It's you can do it, but it's better if it's face to face. So that's me, really.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's psychotherapy, transpersonal psychotherapy.
Yes, sorry.
Trained
yes.
in, and
yes.
Yeah, face to face is, I suppose it's the same in all relationships, really, isn't it? That we can do some wonderful things with technology like this, and using Zoom to catch up with our friends and family, but it loses something, doesn't it?
Well, you pick up a lot of body language when you're face to face with someone, which you could miss if you're doing it live, because you're only seeing this bit of the top bit of their body, as it were. So you do miss certain things. But in these troubled times that we're living in, that's unfortunately the only option at the moment for a lot of people.
Yes, I look forward to getting back to face-to-face work myself. Great. Okay, so shall we just kick on?
Let's go on. Well, I'm going to tell a little story about myself. But first of all, I'll say that no one is born cruel or unkind. I don't believe any healthy parent wakes up in the morning and thinks, now, what can I do to really distress my little Janet and John today? I don't think that is happening. It's just that all parents come from the behavior and experience of their own parenting, and the mirroring an early attachment that they received. So, and also, of course, some parents live with certain disorders, and I spell disorder, DIS-order. I prefer that, disorder, because it's something that's not flowing, something that's interrupting somebody's life, whether it be anorexia, an eating disorder, agoraphobia, a narcissistic personality disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, any of those things which people struggle to live with. So trying to bring up children as well when you're not feeling so good yourself is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And this affects the dynamic of the family. So the family structure is stretched when there is one or both parents or caretakers with some kind of disorder going on in their lives. And so what happens if a child doesn't feel safe and can't feel totally comfortable within his own home space, what is he supposed to do? So he really has to change. He has to change and split or cut off from his true self in order to present a self that's going to be more acceptable to his family or his caregivers. And he wears a mask. He puts on a false identity, and thus ensures that the equilibrium in the family dynamic is a bit smoother. So I got the message very early on in childhood that, I needed to be a good girl. And I was quite a sweet child anyway, by nature. And but by the age of 5, I had unconsciously hidden any angry feelings away. And everyone said what a good girl I was. So until one day, and I was about 5.5, and I was at a little private school. It was a tiny little school. I mean, there were only about 40 students there. It was in the headmistress's house. It was a house. She used her house as the school. So when you walk through through the dining room to get to a class, there was a parrot there. This was her home. So it was very much home from home. But this one particular day, 4 of us hadn't gone home for lunch. We'd remained at school. And you have to understand that my caretakers, mostly women, were highly anxious because they got it into their head that, well, I was premature baby, and they got it into their head that I was really a fragile child. And so I had a fragile label put onto me. So I wasn't allowed to do anything. They were terrified I was going to get sick. With the result, from 6 to 9, I caught every childhood illness going. But so anyway, to get back to the school, so for once in my life, I was in charge of something, and I was really happy. And I was ordering the others about, a bit drunk with power, maybe, I don't know, but they were listening. And I don't know what the game was, but I was having them we sat on these long, low seats, forms they were called. Long, low, what the hell is it called?
Like a
sorry for the language. It was called benches, long, low benches.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting them to carry 2 of these long, low benches into a corridor. I don't know what the devil the game was, but that was the plan. And it went really well so there were 2 boys and 1 other girl, until the girl decided she didn't want to do it anymore. And suddenly a rage I've never forgotten this. I mean, it's quite incredible. A rage took over me. And I went over to the girl and I got hold of her and got hold of her arms. And I put my face very close to hers and really gave her a hateful look. And I saw her eyes widen. She got really worried. And then she broke away and ran downstairs. And the next thing I knew, the headmistress came up the stairs with her deputy, and they were saying to me, "What a naughty girl! Why have you been such a naughty? We're amazed. You're normally such a good girl, but you've been so naughty." And I was absolutely filled with shame. And it shows how much shame I was filled with, because I've never forgotten the story, and that was a long, long time ago. Anyway, so
can I ask a question about that lovely anecdote? So you said that you didn't express any anger until that moment, and I'm wondering, is that because anger was not allowed in your house? Was that seen as an emotion that was taboo?
No. Oh, my grandmother had a terrible temper. She could fly off the handle I was terrified of her. She could fly off the handle at any moment. But no, it wasn't. It was this message I got that I had to be perfect, that I had to be good, and I had to be perfect. And so somehow that got in there. And at this day, well, I wasn't at home either. I was outside. I probably wouldn't have done that at home, but I was outside the home. And it just, the fact that I was enjoying having this control, telling them all what to do, it was wonderful. It felt so liberating. And then this little one started, "I'm not doing that," so yeah.
It all came out.
Well, blew, yes. Blew up. Okay, so let's go on. So I'm going to be quoting quite a bit from this book, Family Secrets by John Bradshaw. And this is all about, obviously, families and the dynamic that goes on within families. And for anybody interested, or anyone who has, or had issues with parents, I would highly recommend this book. It's really good. He does exercises towards the middle of the book. There are exercises to do, and it's really well written. And the other book I will make a few quotes from is, of course, Alice Miller's The Drama of Being a Child. Okay, so, right, let's see where I am. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to read a piece from here. This is the beginning from Family Secrets. Here. Right, so this is what Mr. Bradshaw says, and we will be covering different patterns, but we will definitely get onto specifically onto mother a bit later on. So he says, spousification is an unconscious dark secret with long-term consequences. A child can be used to keep the marriage together in any of a variety of ways. The child can be the scapegoat who behaves in ways that worry his mum and dad so much that they get closer together. Or a child can be the pretty one, or the talented one, or the athletic one, whose accomplishments absorb the parents' attention. In both cases, the focus on the child distracts the parents from their own problems. The child is used to keep the marriage together, but the child cannot know he or she is being used. How do you feel when you know you're being used in a relationship? Generally angry and resentful. Children can't know they are being used at a conscious level, but they know it at an unconscious level. Their anger and resentment are hot issues that will be dumped on their lovers, spouses, or children. The second way a child is spousified is by taking care of one parent's emptiness, pain, and disappointment. The marriage is too conflict-ridden or dead to provide for the parent's intimacy needs. So the child becomes one parent's special one. So he's listing here the impact of dark secrets. So he's listed here varying degrees of family dysfunction. So 1, they organize the way the family perceives things. Certain topics become, which is what you were talking about, certain topics become taboo, and unspoken rules spring up around forbidden areas that are considered off limits. Myths are often created to distract family members from looking at what is really going on. 2, they create and maintain chronic levels of intense anxiety. There is an intensity of feeling surrounding a secret that is difficult to disguise. The very act of keeping a secret generates anxiety in the person, who must be constantly on guard against disclosure, avoiding particular subjects and distorting information. The secret keeper must be careful to avoid peripheral subjects that would expose the secret. 3, they keep members bonded to the family. They make it difficult to separate. 4, they isolate the secret keeper. Secrets cut the keeper off from forgiveness and reconciliation and mutuality. We actually, in my family, I had an aunt who kept all the secrets from the family. Well, she was actually coerced into keeping secrets by 2 other family members, but only the 3 of them knew the secret. Nobody else in the family were aware of them.
Gosh, do you know, I'm just thinking it's a massive tangled web, isn't it? I think many families are like this. I'm thinking about one of the sides of my family as well, which, you know, it's a case of these people know this, but they don't know that. But these people know this, and those people don't know that. So you mustn't tell them this. You must. I don't want to be involved in this. I'm not into secret keeping at all. So just don't tell me if you want. It's a headache.
It's a headache. You know, I did it the other day with somebody because I couldn't remember whether I'd given my confidence to. And I hate I hate being told something. Oh, don't tell anybody, that kind of thing. And I blurted it out. And then I thought, oh, God, was I supposed to say that? I mean, it's awful. It's just awful. So 5, they keep the family from resolving the past. They thereby maintain multi-generational dysfunction. 6, they damage trust and reliability. They often must be maintained through lying and deceit. One secret buries another. 7, they lead to confusion and mystification. This causes us to create false selves as protective strategies, which prohibit intimacy and set up pseudobonds and enmeshment. 8, they support dysfunctional family processes. They do this by creating coalitions and cross-generational alliances and by stabilizing triangles, which is what we were just talking about. 9, they limit the range of thinking and imagining. Therefore, they severely limit freedom of choice. 10, they create unhealthy family loyalty to a group trance. 11, they create a sense of ambiguous loss. 12, they are the core of obsessive and compulsive behaviors. 13, they rigidify family rules and roles. And finally, 14, they divide the family. Those on the in can communicate with each other better on any issue than they can with anyone who is out. And then he says, in the case of severe abuse, dark secrets cause further dysfunction. And there are 5 of these. 1, they set up a whole gamut of auto-hypnotic ego defenses. These include repression, denial, and sensory numbing to avoid the hurt and pain that come with the violation. 2, they cause the victims to turn their hurt and anger towards themselves or project it onto others. 3, they create the compulsion to protect our parents. 4, they keep us from knowing ourselves and the truth of our childhood. 5, they are acted out or acted in present or future generations. And so then he explains a bit, acting out and acting in behaviors are especially paradoxical symptoms of the mysterious power of dark family secrets to destroy an individual's freedom and right to selfhood. The paradox is that at some mysterious level of consciousness, the secrets are not really secrets. Many family therapists believe that everyone in the family knows the secret at some level of awareness, and that the more the secrets are denied, the more they get acted in or out. So it's a tangled web, as you say.
That's right. And you used the word dysfunctional there, and all of those different facets that Bradshaw was talking about. It sounds very dysfunctional, but also very resonant for a lot of families that I have experience of. And I'm thinking of the word toxic as well. So toxic parenting, toxic families, toxic relationships. Is there a difference, would you say, between a toxic parenting or a toxic family and dysfunctional, or are they kind of one and the same?
I think when he uses the term toxic, because he talks a lot about toxic shame, and this is shame that gets passed on through the family, and it's brutal. When a family is operating and holding a lot of toxic shame. So I think when he's using the word toxic, he's using it at its strongest point. So if you're talking about dysfunction, whatever, the list we've just gone through, everything is is about enmeshment, is about dysfunction, is about people, and they wouldn't believe that they are living in a dysfunctional way. You know, some people recognize this is not, you know, functional behavior. There's something wrong here, but a lot of people don't, because that's the weird thing about the family dynamic. It has to be balanced. Even if it's dysfunctional, it has to remain balanced in order that it can flow. But even if it flows in a dysfunctional way, it's still flowing. And it's when one member comes out, you know, backs off, and therefore their role is no longer participating in the whole, there's a gap, that's when the whole thing starts to wobble. But I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So it is about balance and these different roles that everyone plays, and they have to kind of keep playing them in order to achieve that seesaw balance. And maybe, you know, dysfunction and toxicity is a continuum. So at one end you've got mild dysfunction, but actually it works okay despite that. And at the other end it can become very toxic. And you use the example of shame, and going back to that anecdote that you told about yourself at the beginning there, and you felt terrible shame. And my understanding of toxic shame is when you feel that you're a bad person. It's not that you've done a bad thing, but you are a bad person.
When it's really deep, it's really deep. It's not just being embarrassed for doing something or feeling uncomfortable or feeling a bit guilty or something. It's when it hits a point where, you know, it hits a trauma. It hits a very early stage trauma. And the behavior that's just happened triggers that person right back. And that's where it's all sitting. And so that it's like somebody falling into a swimming pool of toxic shame. You know, they're sort of feeling okay. Something happens and they get triggered and they fall right into it. And then it's huge.
Yeah.
So let's have a look. Where am I? 51, 53. I think we finished there. All right, that's it. Okay. So, right, 58. Let's go here. So, family therapists call a child who becomes the symptom bearer the scapegoat child. When there are siblings, it is not always clear why one child will take on this role rather than another. Some of the answers may lie in the birth position. You've probably looked at these at college already, birth orders. Oh, I don't know whether we did. I think we did it, birth orders.
We've done a little on it, yeah.
Right, okay. So let's explain a little bit. So from the parents' point of view, if they focus their attention on their problem child rather than on their marriage, a burden is lifted from them. If their child is the problem, they can avoid looking at their own issues. In fact, the parents may come to have an investment in the preservation of the child's sickness. The stronger the sense of solid self in individual family members, the less the family stays stuck together. Functional families resolve the problems that are causing anxiety, while dysfunctional families repress the problems or choose ineffective ways to resolve them. So by keeping the child dependent, the mother or father can feel loved and valued and complete. The child's natural urge to grow initiates a desire for separation and autonomy. Since separation and autonomy threaten the insecure parent with rejection and withdrawal of love, the child cannot separate. This means that the child never truly connects with his own feelings, thoughts, and desires. This lack of connection with his own experience blocks the child from developing a strong self and differentiating from the family. So that's just what we've been talking about with the family dynamic. Right, so we're going to look, I think, hang on, where am I? 62, yeah. So he looks at the parent's projection process and says, identification is particularly significant in early life. The earliest identification, often called primary identification, is that between infant and mother. There is good evidence that during this earliest stage of development, infants literally cannot distinguish between themselves and their mothers. Identification also refers to the unconscious tendency of all human beings to internalize parts of their environment. But when the parent with whom the child identifies feels empty and is troubled with unresolved issues from childhood, the parent often uses identification as a defense mechanism. If a mother disdains her own dependency needs, she projects her feeling of dependency onto her child, rewarding the child for being dependent and helpless, and withdrawing her love when the child shows signs of autonomy and independence.
That sounds like it's something that would feed the Puella complex that we talked about previously.
Very well, yeah. The mother needs the child to stay dependent in order to avoid having to accept and deal with her own morbid dependency needs. Projecting her neediness onto the child by rewarding only dependent behavior sets the child up to identify himself as lovable only when he is dependent. The mother may even verbally exhort the child to be more autonomous, but she may still actually reward only dependent behavior. This process is called projective identification. So, yeah, we're going to look at the sibling profiles, but yeah, that's it. He quotes from somebody called, have you heard of somebody called Bowen? He quotes a lot from, because this guy must have written an awful lot about profile positions, I think, because he's quoting a lot from him. Well, he's saying here that he was fascinated by work on sibling positions done by a Viennese-born professor of psychology, Dr. Walter Thomam. So, okay. So it was the work of Jerome Bach and Alan Anderson, two psychologists working at the Bach Institute in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the 1970s that offered a coherent theory of 4 basic sibling positions based on the dynamic needs of the family, understood as a social system. Bach and Anderson based this theory on hundreds of hours of discussion, clinical observation, interventions in therapy, and consultations with many school teachers. So here we are. So this is first birth order position, and this also applies to the only child. Actually, I think we'll see in a minute, but I think the only child can take on all the roles as well. Anyway, first siblings will act out their father's secrets more than any other sibling position. Whatever unresolved emotional baggage the father is carrying, whatever the father is not dealing with openly, the first sibling will often take it on. Second birth order position. Second position siblings respond to the emotional maintenance needs of the family system. They try to see to it that each family member's emotional needs are met, and they feel especially responsible for the mother. Second siblings are especially aware of the elements implicit in the family rules and relationships. They will probably pick up the family secrets faster than their siblings, especially the mother's secrets. Third birth order position. Third position children feel responsible for maintaining the quality of the marital relationship. Their self-esteem is connected to the stability of the marriage. They need to be connected to both mom and dad. Thirds will probably be enmeshed in the secrets of the marriage more than their siblings, and they are more likely to act out the marital secrets. If mom and dad have lots of anger that is not being dealt with, the third child might act it out by getting into trouble at school. So the fourth birth order position, fourth position children take on the family's need for unity. If there are only 3 children, the third child will take on the traits that I'm describing for fourths. Fourths feel responsible for harmony in the family. They focus on the goals of the family as a whole. They look at wholes first and then at the parts. Their self-esteem is very wrapped up in the family's happiness. They are most prone to be enmeshed in the secrets shared by the whole family, and they feel a sense of loyalty to keep secrets known by the whole family. They can be easily overwhelmed by the amount of conflict in the family. Fourth siblings often feel responsible for disruption and pain in the family. They need help in delimiting their part of the family burden so that they don't take on too much of it. They need lots of approval, and they need to be told that they are not to blame for the pain and tension in the family. It's quite depressing, isn't it?
I'm just thinking this is so codependent. Again, a topic of one of our previous talks. It's so enmeshed and so much playing out these roles in order to please others.
It's heavy. It's really heavy.
Families, eh?
Siblings after the fourth. So this is for people that have more than 4 children, right? Siblings after the fourth position repeat the cycles. Fifths are like firsts, sixths are like seconds, and so on. In the case of twins, the firstborn will take on more of the first sibling issues. In the case of a child born with much older siblings, the birth order remains unchanged. Right. And a child born when his brother and sister are in their teens is still in the third position. But such a child may also have certain characteristics of only children. If a child dies, the birth order remains the same for those who survive. Only children may take on all, God, poor me, on all the birth order roles. If their parents are immature and unfulfilled, they are sure to be projected on. If their parents are mature, they usually fare well. Only children often act more adult than their peer group, and they often want things their own way. Any in-depth discussion of other sibling constellations would take us too far afield. But I urge those of you who want to delve deeper to read Margaret Hoop's and James Harper's book, Birth Order Roles and Sibling Patterns in Individual Family Therapy. Bach and Anderson have endorsed this book. Right.
Very good. And Becky, thanks for joining us. Becky is saying it resonates very much with her and it's caused so much pain. So the youngest of 6, so 2 and 4 resonating, like you say, once you get to 4, 5 becomes 1, and 6 is the traits of 2. So it's playing out there. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, well, I would recommend that Becky gets this book to read it, or if you can look at it online. I don't know if you can, but I would recommend. It's a really good book. So where are we? 69, we finished that. Well, this is quite interesting. Emotional cutoff is a strategy that family members use when they are unable to resolve conflict. It normally means that a relationship is very intense and the family members do not know how to resolve it. It often means that the persons involved really care a lot about each other, but don't know how to deal with their love. Cut-off patterns in adulthood are determined by the way people handle their unresolved emotional attachments to their parents and siblings. The lower the level of differentiation, the more intense the unresolved attachment and the more prone a person is either to severe enmeshment or to severe cutoff. And then he says, the person who runs away from the family of origin is as emotionally dependent as the one who never leaves home. This concept can help to understand some seemingly bizarre family behaviors. This is interesting. He says, our so-called correctional institutions recreate the exact conditions of privacy violation and shaming and humiliation that produced the criminals in their dysfunctional, shaming, privacy violating families. Many soul murdered criminals. What does soul murdered criminal mean? Violate the innocent, people who have lost their sense of soul, violate the innocent just as they were once violated as children.
And the pattern repeats.
No escape. Nice. We all need a good drink after this. I'm sorry, I didn't, when I was reading it back, it didn't sound so heavy. Okay, so.
It's all enlightening stuff. But yeah, extra cup of herbal tea afterwards.
I think so. Hang on. Just let me check that I'm not going wrong. Yeah. So, okay. So here we come. Here we come now.
So Miral says, cutting the ties requires deep work on the self with a capital S.
You know, I think this would be extremely difficult. Thanks, Miral. She's absolutely right. I think, you know, anyone who has or is suffering, I really think, well, some people may be able to read a lot and get an understanding of what's going on for them, but I really think you know, getting some kind of therapy is really helpful to explore, because it needs that two-way dialogue with a therapist to really start to, you know, to explore what's going on.
And the reparenting aspects as well, isn't it? The relationship between therapists, the unconditional positive regard, the reparenting, to perhaps undo some of that stuff. Like you were saying earlier on, the children can become parentified. I think the phrase you used was spouseified, which I haven't heard before, but it is.
No, I haven't. That maybe is you know, and he's American. It might be an American expression. Yeah. But spouseification. Yeah.
So yeah, reparenting through therapy, and you can work through a lot of these dynamics that were unhealthy at the time.
And there are lots of groups out there as well. How is it that it hasn't repeated with my son? Well, you've just answered the question. You wanted to parent completely differently because of your experience with your parents.
Yeah.
So obviously, Becky was conscious enough to understand what had gone on and able to work with that. But, you know, an unconscious person who is quite unconscious, of course, just repeats because they're in too much pain to do anything.
Yeah, I think the two ways we can go as parents ourselves is either to copy what was done to us, whether that's conscious or unconscious behaviour, or to do the complete opposite. So if we had a really strict mum, for example, we might become incredibly permissive and
can go the rebel. Somebody rebels and just, absolutely. But, it's amazing. It's so deep, the stuff that, I catch myself sometimes doing something and then I laugh when I realize, and I think, God, this is just how my mother would, if my mother would have just said that, it's incredible. So here we get to your mother's dark secrets. Oh, God, I'll have to hurry up. Just looked at the time. Your mother's dark secrets. So we've got a couple of quotes here, one from Mr. Carl Jung and the other from a lady called Pat Conroy, who wrote the book, The Prince of Tides, which was made into a very good film. So first of all, Mr. Jung says, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their children than the unlived life of the parent. And Miss or Mrs. Conroy says, my mother never, so this is from the book, obviously, my mother never quite finished the task of creating herself. She rarely told a story about her childhood that was not a lie. In 1,000 days of my childhood, she offered 1,000 different mothers for my inspection. That's a really good film if anybody wants to read it, because it's on this subject of the mother. The Prince of Tides, and some very good actors, Barbara Streisand and I can't remember Nick Nolte, I think. Excellent film, because it really is extremely, he has such a lot of baggage, the guy, and such a lot of stuff that's been absolutely pushed down and hidden. And it's only when he meets Miss Streisand, who is a psychologist, that he starts to unravel the whole stuff, and it's really good. It's a really good film. So let me see. I've thrown the thing away. What am I, Jackie? For God's sakes. 69. Okay. Right. So here is what he calls the dangerous secret of narcissistic deprivation. All of us are born with narcissistic needs. We need to look into our mothering source figure's face and see ourselves reflected there. We need this because even though we have an innate and unconscious sense of self-value, we can come to know this only by seeing ourselves as totally accepted, valued, and admired in our mother's eyes. The eyes and face are the arena where the primal scene of human life takes place. We also need to have our feelings and needs taken seriously by an attentive, empathic, and nurturing mother. When we are valued and nurtured in this way, our narcissistic needs are satisfied. But what if the mothering source was deprived of her own mother's mirroring, face and eyes? Suppose her own mother was cold and indifferent, or suppose she was overburdened by a bad marriage, several other children, or a lingering postpartum depression. Then the child looks and cannot see herself. Rather, she sees confusion and maybe even angry rejection and neediness. A child intuitively experiences her parents' neediness and will give up the expression of her own needs and wants to take care of her mother. This is not a conscious decision made out of altruism. It is an unconscious adaptation driven by survival needs. As parents go through their child's developmental stages, their own developmental deficits, if they have them, are triggered at each stage. That's really interesting. As Alice Miller writes in the drama of The Gifted Child, A child is at the mother's disposal. A child cannot run away as the mother's own mother did. A child can be made to show respect. She can impose her own feelings on him, see herself mirrored in his love and admiration. The mother can feel herself the center of attention, for her child's eyes follow her everywhere. Thus, in a paradoxical and strange way, the child becomes the mother's narcissistic supplier, but the child is left hungry for nurture. Once deprived, the child will grow up looking for him or herself in substitute faces. Right, so I'll read through a few. I'm aware that the time is going on. We'll read through a few of these. And what he does, I'm reading, this is all the stuff about mother, and a little bit further on in the book, he does genograms, so you can look, you can work out your own family genogram, but you can also do exercises with mother, to do with mother. So it's really, it's a good book. Your mother, yourself. Have you spent your life trying to make your mother happy? Does your mother call you frequently and chide you for not calling her or coming to see her? Do you feel guilty when she does this? When you see your mother, do you change your behavior so that she can feel good? Have you spent your life trying to impress others and see admiration for you on their faces? Every yes answer to these questions increases the likelihood that you have been narcissistically deprived. Have you ever been able to tell your mother your real feelings? Have you ever been able to express anger to her? Are you able to tell her the ways you disagree with her? Has your mother ever really listened to you? Can you go to her for validation? Every no answer to these questions increases the likelihood that you have been narcissistically deprived. I'm sorry. It's the subject. I can't do anything about it.
It's okay. And you know, Becky again is saying that it's so important to discuss this stuff, and certainly because it affects us as children, but also as adults, and perhaps we get more enmeshed, there's more complication in there the older we get, and more generations come in, and the tangled web increases, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have a natural desire to please the ones we love, but we do not need to be loved, even by our mothers, at the cost of ourselves. After all, a mother's job is to take care of her children. So she has done her job well when they can take care of themselves. To have them beholden to her for life, ravaged by duty, obligation, and guilt, is mystified love grounded in narcissistic deprivation. Sorry. That's good. That's good.
They're all saying healing the deeply embedded family dysfunction is heroic work. Jung would call it world work, and I think that's true, because it is breaking that chain, isn't it, of toxic family.
Well, it's about speaking your truth. You know, that's so hard for so many people in families to be able to speak their truth. They go along with everything, afraid to upset. This is going to upset this one's going to upset that one, and there's an argument. I mean, more arguments must happen at Christmas times and celebration times when families do get together. I mean, you know, all this stuff that people are holding, and somebody says the wrong thing, and then woof, it just all blows up. Have I got time to read a little bit from Alice Miller?
I'm perfectly fine with the time it go, as long as you are comfortable to go.
It's about perversion, but I think it's important. It's important for men. Well, not that I'm saying only men have perversions, but I think it's important. And this is why on one of the other talks, I chose as an example, I chose the fictitious character of Norman Bates in Bates Hotel, because the mother there, her toxic behavior absolutely twists his mind until he becomes what he becomes. But I'll just go, it's not long. I've written 7 minutes on it. I time I've written 7 minutes. So let's 98. Here we are. Okay. So this is what she calls perpetuation of contempt in perversion and obsessive behavior. If a mother cannot take pleasure in her child as he is, but must have him behave in a particular way, then the first value selection takes place for the child. Now, good is differentiated from bad, nice from nasty, and right from wrong. Against this background will follow all his further valuations of himself. Such an infant must learn that there are things about him for which the mother has no use. She will expect her child to control his bodily functions as early as possible. On the conscious level, his parents apparently want him to do so in order not to offend against society, but unconsciously, they are protecting their own repression, dating from the time when they were themselves small children, afraid of offending. Marie Hess, the mother of the poet and novelist Hermann Hesse, describes in her diaries how her own will was broken at the age of 4. When her son was 4 years old, she suffered greatly under his defiant behavior and battled against it with varying degrees of success. At the age of 15, Hermann Hesse was sent to an institution for the care of epileptics and defectives in Stettin to put an end to his defiance once and for all. In an affecting and angry letter from Stettin, Hesse wrote to his parents, "If I were a bigot and not a human being, I could perhaps hope for your understanding. All the same, his release from the home was made conditional upon his improvement, and so the boy improved." In a later poem dedicated to his parents, denial and idealization are restored. He reproaches himself that it had been his character that had made life so difficult for his parents. Many people suffer all their lives from this oppressive feeling of guilt, the sense of not having lived up to their parents' expectations. This feeling is stronger than any intellectual insight they might have that it is not a child's task or duty to satisfy his parents' needs. No argument can overcome these guilt feelings, for they have their beginnings in life's earliest period, and from that they derive their intensity and obduracy. They can be resolved only slowly with the help of a revealing therapy. Probably the greatest wounds, not to have been loved just as one truly was, cannot heal without the work of mourning. It can be either more or less successfully resisted and covered up, bracket, as in grandiosity and depression, bracket, or constantly torn open again in the compulsion to repeat. We encounter this latter possibility in obsessive behavior and in perversions where the mother's or father's scornful reactions to the child's behavior have stayed with him as repressed memory stored up in his body. And in brackets, the same happens with mistreatments and molestations that have been endured, bracket. The mother often reacted with surprise and horror, aversion and disgust, shock and indignation, or fear and panic to the child's most natural impulses. His autoerotic behavior, investigation and discovery of his own body, urination and defecation, or his curiosity or rage in response to betrayal and injustice. Later, all these experiences remain closely linked with the mother's horrified eyes. They drive the former child to obsessions and perversions in which the traumatic scenes that were endured can be reproduced. In order for pain to be avoided, the true meaning of these scenes must remain unrecognizable to the person himself. Can a mother be so menacing? Yes, if she was always proud of being her mother's dear, good daughter, who was dry at the age of 6 months and clean at a year, who at 3 could mother her younger siblings, and so forth. In her own baby, such a mother sees the split off and never experienced part of herself, of whose breakthrough into consciousness she is afraid. She also sees the uninhibited sibling baby, whom she mothered at such an early age and only now envies and perhaps hates in the person of her own child. So she trains her child with looks, despite what may be a greater intellectual wisdom than her own mother's. As the child grows up, he cannot cease living his own truth and expressing it somewhere, perhaps in complete secrecy. In this way, a person can have adapted completely to the demands of his surroundings and can have developed a false self. But in his perversion of his obsessions, he still allows a portion of his true self to survive in torment. And so the true self lives on, but underground, in the same conditions as the child once did with his disgusted mother, whose memory in the meantime he has repressed. In his perversion and obsessions, he constantly reenacts the same drama. A horrified mother is necessary before sexual satisfaction is possible. Orgasm, in brackets, for instance, with a fetish, bracket, can be achieved only in a climate of self-contempt. Criticism can be expressed only in seemingly absurd, unaccountable, and frightening obsessive fantasies. Nothing will better serve to acquaint us with the hidden tragedy of certain unconscious mother-child relationships than witnessing the destructive power of the compulsion to repeat, and that compulsion's dumb, unconscious communication in the shaping of its drama.
This is very Freudian, isn't it? The repetition, compulsion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've seen this, I worked with a client who was pretty much left to fend for herself by her parents, who were absent both physically and emotionally. And she was kind of prided on for her independence. And then when she became a mother herself, exactly what you were speaking about there, of they must be dry by 6 months, they must be able to walk by 12 months and do this. And I thought, gosh, this is the theory playing out right in front of me. Absolutely.
And it's like, the parents who are very controlling, and they allow the child to cry and cry and cry. A baby doesn't cry for nothing. It's either needs changing, or it's hungry, or there's something wrong, but it doesn't just cry. And I despair when I hear young mums saying, oh, well, I just closed the door. Just, some friends of my sons were here on holiday, and they wanted to all go out one night, so they brought their 2 kids, and the baby was only I think the baby was only about 4, and she said to me, oh, it's all right. She said, the girl will go to sleep. You read her a story, she'll go to sleep very quickly, but him, he might cry, and it's okay, just close the door. I was mortified. I was just mortified. It's okay, just leave him to cry, be fine. So,
Yeah, it's a sign of the times as well sometimes, not in that case, but I think in the 50s and 60s, that was the advice. There were books written about it saying, just put your baby outside in a pram on the balcony, leave him to cry, do not touch him for 2 hours or something.
Don't pick him up. You mustn't pick them up. You have to let them, fills me with horror. But I think today a lot of, you're talking about the 50s there, but I think today, I've heard a few mothers say the same thing, oh, they'll be fine, just cry a bit.
Yeah, so I want to go back to what you said right at the beginning, Jackie, around there not being parents who go out to, I'm going to traumatize or harm my child. They don't deliberately go out to do this. It's that thing that we keep talking about, that everyone does the best that they can with the tools they have, and they repeat or rebel against a lot of the behaviors that they experienced as a child. So that trauma plays out across the generations.
And of course, if you add in some kind of disorder that's going on as well, if somebody has an addiction, whatever, they might leave a baby and go out in order to get whatever, all kinds of stuff goes on. So, and that's traceable back to their parenting, of course, as well. I hate it when people label people and say, oh, they're just whatever. They weren't born just whatever. They were born pure. Something happened in the meantime, and you're a fan like me of Gabor Mate, and the first thing he says when somebody talks about a child with some kind of disorder or some kind of troubled child, he's straight away he will say, well, I would look at the parents. If there's something happening with the child, just look at the parents. It's coming from them.
Yeah.
So, we have to widen our understanding, and a lot of people, unfortunately, can't do that. They see a fault and they name it, and they don't want to go any further. Yeah. But of course, and imagine people who are very young who get married and they've hardly grown up. Before they're having, a girl, say 20, who has a baby or whatever, or younger even. How on earth, she's hardly grown up. How is she going to manage? How is she going to know all the stuff she needs to know? Even older parents struggle. So how is a very young, immature girl going to manage?
Yeah, it's tough. And, from my own personal experience, when I got married when I was 23, I thought I knew everything.
Quite young, actually.
Very young, yes. Yeah. It really wasn't on my radar, but then it just happened. And I thought I knew everything at that age. It turns out I knew not very much at all, didn't know myself very well at all. And it was quite a long time later that we had children, but we went into that thinking, it'll be all right. But for me, it's been the biggest learning experience of my life, becoming a parent. And every day still I learn from being a parent. I learn from my children. I learn about myself. I learn about humanity. So with the best will in the world and the best parents in the world, I think it's very hard to be equipped to be a good parent just from reading some books. You really got to know yourself. And it may be that through the process of parenting, that's how you get to know yourself, or through therapy or something like that.
Absolutely. And, if it depends on everybody's circumstances as well. The most placid people on earth get frazzled when they get tired and they're exhausted and, without having any other thing going on in their life. So, we're only human after all. And I think we really, people often beat themselves up too much. We have to give ourselves a break sometimes. But if we cannot create any harm, if we cannot be cruel, if we can be kind, and everybody loses their temper from time to time, it just happens. So it's not about really being self-critical too much. We have to give ourselves a break sometimes, and and manage. But as long as we can get enough periods of kindness in there and good times in there, and happy memories in there, then that's the most important thing. But I would be seriously suspicious if I saw a family who said, we never have an argument, we sit and we have our dinner at night and nobody argues, we all agree on everything, we never argue, we all, something wrong, because everyone has a different personality. How can everybody want to go fishing one day or to the beach the other day or whatever? there's something wrong if it's so perfect. There's no such thing as perfection, as you know. So there's something going on if everybody's very happy all the time.
Yes, it's all being repressed, isn't it? And it's almost like the whole family are enmeshed in this fantasy of not speaking out about their needs.
It's a dreamland, isn't it? Yeah. It's like being on a film set. They're on a constant film set.
So yeah, I like what you said, Jackie, about being kind to ourselves, so self-compassion, forgiving ourselves for our mistakes as parents and as individuals, and also towards our own parents. I think it's very, talks like this, I think are great to raise awareness, and it can shine a light on things that happen to us as children. And I suppose there's two things to consider here. There's the accessing the anger, rage, resentment, whatever it is, for what we didn't get as children, or the negative things that we did experience, but also having compassion for our parents, because like us, we're flawed. They were parented as well, as were their parents. So it is just this repeating chain. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think the most important thing is admitting when we get something wrong, not lying, not being stubborn and saying, no, it wasn't like that. To be able to admit, okay, yeah, I messed up. That wasn't the best way to deal with it. Yeah, I'm sorry. But to be honest. Honesty is really important, because a child knows when a parent isn't being honest, and that's when the trust starts to erode. So honesty is really important, and we have to be honest with ourselves. And nothing's a mistake if you learn from it. It's not a mistake, because you just make sure you don't do that again.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I broke up there for a moment, but the rupture and repair thing: make a mistake, own it, and go and say sorry.
Yeah.
Cool. Okie dokie. Okay. So anything else, Jackie, before we end?
No, I think that's about it. Alice Miller talks about an inner prison. If a child cannot be themselves, it's like they're in an inner prison, and they're just stuck.
Yeah. So Marita, thank you.
Marita.
Yeah. In the prison, yes. Muriel has said about leaving the children to cry.
Yes, control. Yeah, that's right, Muriel. Yeah, controlled crying.
Yeah. So is that the
very name gives me shudders.
Yes.
Controlled. Yes. Look at the word controlled.
Yes. And I really got that sense when you were talking, doing one of the quotes earlier, that a lot of parents want to shape their children into mini-me's or the perfect child. They won't cry, they won't argue, they won't answer back, they won't get cross. But actually, we're all individuals. And I suppose looking back again on my parenting, I have two very well-behaved children, and I get a lot of compliments on that. But that's partly because I was quite strict. I maybe still am, and it was a case of, don't be crying. And I've probably stifled some of their unique characteristics by being so controlling, I suppose. Which is
but you're modeling good stuff now. So surely the modeling that you're doing now, they're coming to an age now where they're old enough to be able to receive that. I think you're being a bit hard on yourself. Yes, maybe you were you were a bit over controlling, but what you're modeling now is good. It's we have to let go of what happened before. We'd drive ourselves mad if we keep raking in and look what I did then, and I did that, and how could I do that? How could I give my son Nutella, which is so poisonous, and I bought it by the jarful for him, poor thing, he was addicted to it, but it's gone, it's past, and we're in the now. So we have to do the best with that.
Absolutely. Compassion again. Okay, so two more comments. So sad when parents do their best, they look back and feel guilty even though they did it better. Yeah, absolutely. Just what you just said. Yeah. And Karen says, really informative. Thank you. Glad you found it so, Karen. Great stuff.
Okay.
Right. So thank you once again.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. And I think you're going to be coming back to do at least one more. We'll set a date for that. So yeah, thank you. That's great.
Yeah, well, that's a bit grim, that one as well, I'm sure.
It's all good stuff. It's all juicy. Borderline narcissistic and schizoid. Yes, I look forward to that one. Yeah. Brilliant.
We'll see. I need a little break, but we'll see.
Okay. In the autumn, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Jackie. Take care.
Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, great. Hope you enjoyed that, folks. So coming up tomorrow, Jaffa and Steve, if he's back off his holiday, and if not, Super Sub, who I've forgotten the name of, I do apologise. They're back in at 10:30 tomorrow for Tools for Living Your Life. Lots of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming tips there, which is going down a storm, I think. Lovely energy there in those sessions. Saturday, we've got the new book club. Well, it's the old book club, but it's a new book. So we're opening up to new members, and they're going to be looking at the Celestine Prophecy, which is a wonderful book. It was one of my dad's favourite books, actually, and yeah, really powerful. So if you fancy that, have a look at the Hive, 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Details are on there, and there's also an experiential guide to the Celestine Prophecy. And Rachel, who's running the book club, would like you to get both, please, so that you can follow through. Highly recommend it. It's going to be wonderful, and you get lots of insights from that, I imagine, if you haven't read it already. Even if you have read it, it's good to discuss these things. And then what else have we got coming up? Oh, yes. So if you want to win a free ticket to Joanne Forrestal's workshop, online workshop, Do It Despite, then you can do so. You can win yourself a free ticket just by subscribing to the Hive or buying me a coffee. You can do it right now. You can put the thingamabob up. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. And if you've enjoyed tonight's session and you haven't already donated or subscribed, much appreciated if you can drop £3 my way to spend on Banana Loaf. I should call it buymeabananaloaf.com, really. And then you'll go into the prize draw to win that free ticket. So you need to do that by Monday. Close of play on Monday if you want a chance of winning that ticket. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, if you want to share the group with your friends, family, colleagues, anyone that you think can benefit from it, bring them in. The more the merrier. It's lovely getting folks in and giving lovely comments around the friendliness of the group and the supportiveness and the quality content from people like Jackie coming in and gifting their time and wisdom. So it's all wonderful. It gives me a nice warm glow inside, and I hope it does to you too. So thanks for being here, and I shall see you again before very long. I think my next live session is on Monday. I've forgotten who it is though. Oh, I know who it is. It's Robert Cobbold, Conscious Evolution. That is going to be awesome with the true sense of the word awe. So yeah, tune in for that. And we've also got Graham Bint coming in next Thursday to talk about complex PTSD, which would be wonderful too. So thanks again. See you soon. Take care of yourselves and go gently. Be compassionate to yourself if you are a parent or you've been parented. None of us are perfect. We all just do our best. So take care. Be kind. Bye.